Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome to today's program Linus Kalenze, who is Vice President of North American Surface Transportation Consolidation at C.H. Robinson. And today we're going to talk about deliver on time and in full with the Retail Consolidation Program. Now, the pace of change in today's retail environment is, faster, than ever. And, you've got e-commerce and shifting consumer behaviors are really leading retailers to, tighten their requirements on shippers and, imposing penalties for, late or partial shipments, which are, really can make or break, their relationship with the retailers here, really causing a lot of, challenges to their, to their operations. So how can shippers mitigate this? Well, one approach is with the Retail Consolidation Program. But, what exactly is a Retail Consolidation Program? How does it work? And, what are some of the benefits for shippers? Well, those are the key questions we're going to address in today's episode. And it's great to have Linus on the program, who's kind of front and center, on this every day to share his insights and perspective on this topic. So, Linus, welcome to the program.
All right. Hey, good afternoon, Adrian, and thanks for having me on today. Yeah, I'll just really kick us off with giving you a brief intro of myself and a little bit of my career path here at C.H. Robinson, and then we'll get into some of those questions. And just to set a little bit of context, I began my Robinson career about 19 years ago. Like many of us, wasn't really thinking about going into supply chain and logistics, but was looking for a professional career when I moved to Minneapolis. Had an opportunity to do a job shadow interview here at corporate at C.H. Robinson, and kind of knew from there that if I was fortunate enough to get the position, that I'd probably be with this company the rest of my career. And so far, that's proven to be true. I think what instantly drew me to the company and the industry was just, the people, the culture, the fast-paced nature. And this was circa 2000, and you could really see even back then that not only in this organization, but the industry had almost unlimited opportunity in it. And I think the saying back in the day was, transportation and logistics, it's really moving from the back room to the boardroom. And so it's been an exciting time. I started off my career in our Robinson Fresh division, really on the transportation side, executing and delivering services that kind of helped the transportation solutions that really helped enable our delivered product sales for fresh produce. And early on, it was kind of apparent that there weren't a lot of great LTL and consolidation opportunities for fresh produce items. A lot of our growers and shippers who we were partnering with were selling into large retail chains. And so I got an opportunity early on to start to build out cross-dock and consolidation programs that were going into big food channels, food service, grocery, retail outlets. And then did that for about 5 years and then really expanded that to other, perishable and temperature controlled items. So for about a decade, oversaw sort of our nationwide launch of our temperature controlled LTL and consolidation capabilities. And again, heavy focus on vendor, shipper, manufacturer going into large retail channels. And so in my current role as Vice President of Consolidation, about 2 years ago, my responsibilities were expanded to also include the ambient side of our network. And really there we've got a variety of different consolidation programs. Retail consolidation is a really big part of that portfolio. And it's a really interesting and exciting time in that space. You mentioned it, lots of changes going on there. So I think it's great that we get to spend some time together kind of diving in and talking about that space and what's going on there right now.
Yeah, well, great career path and experience there. Certainly brings us to the topic at hand here. Before we kind of get into the specifics of retail consolidation, let's just start by talking about the retail environment today. I mean, what are you seeing in terms of, what are the main factors that are driving, these strict compliance requirements like, on time and full?
Yeah, and you touched on it in the opening, Adrian. I mean, really, when you think about it, it's no secret that e-commerce and online has really disrupted the retail environment, like no one could have ever imagined, right? It's really taken a toll on traditional brick and mortar retailers. And as they're looking at, hey, how do we continue to stay relevant and compete in this new environment with changing consumer expectations and whatnot, really, I think what our focus has been is really this omni-channel thinking, right? And that's really things like, how do they leverage their DC operations and how do they leverage their store footprint to, do things like curbside pickup and in-store pickups and the home delivery of the goods that they carry within their stores, and also leveraging that against their current store footprint, which means creating better shopping experiences And really at the heart of that is having inventory on the shelves when people want to buy it, right? That's key. If you don't have the inventory now, you're going to lose the sale almost instantaneously. And so I think as they begin to really map that out over the last several years, one of the things that becomes apparent is at the heart of all of that, being able to do that is really upstream, being able to manage your inventory in very different ways than you used to manage it, right? So a really extreme focus on sort of hyper speed and accuracy and precision of how that inventory is managed. And so really what that's kind of led them to is, hey, smaller order sizes, carrying less inventory, but more velocity of it, having shortened delivery windows. And so we can't have these 2, 3, 4-day windows to deliver into anymore. I need it when I need it and on that day. And then really it's become down to, 1-hour delivery windows for just about everything. So really, again, I go back to the beginning of my career and think about JIT as almost a new term back then. Everything's really become JIT and everything's become just in time. And so I think as they've kind of gone down that path and said, not only do we need to do those things, but we need to do them reliably and we need to do them just about every time. So there's this race to, have those on-time deliveries and in-full deliveries, 90-95% of the time. That's what people are trying to achieve right now. And so, I think some of the things that they're trying to get to is customers want what they want, when they want, how they want it. You and I as a consumer want that. That's going to now extend to every party in the supply chain. And so, it's really on time and in full. That's a term that we're going to hear more and more of. That's also known as OTIF. As they're trying to drive that, they're saying, okay, do that to get that, 90+% of the time. Some of the things that we're going to have to do to enforce compliance is, create better reporting and vendor scorecards, have fees and fines that go along with non-compliance, reward people with additional business who are in compliance. And so, as you can imagine, that's creating some strife right now because it's a lot of change. It's a lot of change to digest fast, and it's costly when you don't digest that change fast.
Yeah, no, when I talk to a lot of companies today, I mean, this rapid pace of change and, the margin for error is, it's getting smaller and smaller. And I think what's happening today is, and I think part of the challenges companies have is that, up till fairly recently, I mean, I still come across companies that don't have a transportation management system, for example. They're still managing their, transportation operations with spreadsheets and with, faxes and so forth. And now they're coming upon these requirements or say, hey, we need to become much more sophisticated in terms of how we, manage our transportation operations because, the cost of non-compliance can put us out of business or we can lose this customer. And we're just not going to be able to, compete effectively. And, one of the other terms you hear a lot in the industry today is, competing on customer experience. You mentioned kind of the evolution that's taken place. Yeah, logistics and transportation used to be kind of this cost center, backroom thing that happened. And now I think a lot of companies are realizing, and particularly up at the C-level, that, hey, logistics, transportation, all of this really ties into customer experience. And that's what we're really all competing on these days, right?
Absolutely. You're seeing, more chief logistics officers. You're seeing, you said it's a strong logistics can make or break a company these days.
So let's get into now some of the details. I mean, one of the approaches obviously is to meet these compliance requirements is to implement a retail consolidation program. But what is that exactly? In case people are not familiar with that term, I mean, is it the same or different than let's say freight consolidation?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Adrian, and it's one that we get asked quite frequently. I think when we think about consolidation, I kind of touched on it in my intro was, there's all sorts of different consolidation. I think about it in probably a couple of different buckets. There's vertical-based consolidation. So if you think about like consumer food items, temperature-controlled produce, those type of things, there's compatibility issues. So you need to make sure that you're consolidating the right like items and whatnot. Automotive consolidation is another one where specialized equipment, decking, some of those type of things where you're really consolidating a vertical. Market-based consolidation, that's more general consolidation. You're really just optimizing freight across a given market, across a wide number of different shippers who are going out to a disparate group of delivery and distribution channels, right? So you may have a consolidation program out of the Chicagoland area, and you're delivering out to a whole host of different parties out on the West Coast, for instance. When I think about retail consolidation and really what differentiates that, it's really retail consolidation is all about, and it's really being centered around specific requirements of an individual retailer, right? We talked about some of the compliance standards. It's really knowing and understanding what those are and building specific programs around that, and then really optimizing of vendors that are going into those channels, right? You're really trying to get that freight into a consolidation center and then deliver that as one pick, one drops into a specific retail distribution center. We just talked about some of the compliance standards, and you think about general consolidation where there may be multiple picks and multiple stops and lots of deliveries and those type of things. With the precision that you need to hit those appointments now, right? You don't have that luxury of those windows anymore, and so you really need to you really need to hit that precision. And then if you don't, and if you don't have enough critical mass in some of those things, what happens then is you have underutilized trailers, and then that creates all sorts of other problems as well. So when I think about retail consol, it's really optimizing those vendors on behalf of a specific a retailer.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I mean, maybe to kind of ground a little even more. I mean, how does the program work? I mean, what are some of the key capabilities or process steps involved? I mean, how do you get started in this? I mean, what's some of the analysis that's required, or how do you get all the different parties working together here?
Yeah, and that's it. That's a key term, right? You're really synchronizing across a lot of different parties. You've got cross docks and carriers and inbound carriers, and what the retail expectation is, and different shippers who have different shipping patterns and production cycles and all of that. So you're really synchronizing all of those efforts across the whole. I really think that, really what you need to do is there's some core competencies that you need to have to be able to leverage that, right? Certainly, I just talked about volume. We've always said, freight moves freight. That's never more true than in a retail consolidation environment. Critical mass is really critical. Talent, really, it's having subject matter experts at a bunch of different levels, right? Some of it is, you touched on it, having the right, solutions design and analytics teams who can really kind of chew through that data and design a solution that's right for all parties in there. Having account managers who understand both sides of the coin. We've got retail control towers here where we spend a lot of time in that retail environment and spending time at places like Rela and in the industry, really understanding what those trends are, understanding compliance, because this stuff is ever evolving and changing. And then really being able to take that back to our shipper customers and saying, hey, here's what's going on, taking a very consultative approach, and then with them building out solutions that work with them. Finally, there's really our operational engineers who it's important to have that talent there. Those are the people who are hustling every day to make things happen, to plan loads, to make sure the appointments are set, to make sure that everything's happening accurately. So really, volume and talent are a couple of core components. The next thing is really technology, right? This is becoming much more complex. And so really within our Navisphere platform, what we built out a number of years ago was Nav Orders. And that did a couple things for us. It allowed us at an order level to give end-to-end visibility at an order level to all parties in the supply chain who need it, right? The status updates, to know where trucks are, to know if something's going to be late so we can adjust and fit those plans. And then, it also built some efficiency tools in for our people who are planning loads, because I just touched on, you have to have a lot of really talented people doing this stuff. We want them spending more time with our customers and our suppliers, building out solutions, working on exceptions. And so the better the tools that we put in their hands, the more time they can spend doing that. We're also rolling out optimization software here this year, and we're starting to test some of that stuff out that's going to take in things like real-time cost of capacity, weather patterns, just kind of building in a lot of other things that are, more predictive analytics and some of those type of things that will allow us to be far more effective in our optimization processes. So, that technology part is becoming much more important as well. And then capacity, right? You've got to have the right carriers under these loads. And so that's really going from, I talked about some of the general freight consolidation before. Some people like that multi-pick, multi-stop freight. For this stuff, it's all precision. It's all about reliability. So you've got to have the right carrier base, and so really dedicated and committed relationships. And then for the carriers themselves, they tend to enjoy this type of freight too. Less stops, more predictability, quicker turns. So, kind of everybody wins there as well. And so, and then I'll just kind of touch on really that warehouse space is really critical too. We've taken an approach of having a blend of managed facilities that are under, Robinson's banner, and then working with some of the best-in-class third-party providers. So we've got enough, flexibility. We're offering the right level of warehouse services. We've got good turn times, all of those type of things. And so I just rattled off a whole bunch of stuff. There's a lot of different things that go into this, a lot of different moving parts.
Yeah, that was going to be my
volume, technology, capacity, a lot of
yeah,
things.
that was going to be my key takeaway as you were talking through there. I mean, there's obviously a lot that goes into this. I mean, it just speaks to the complexity in terms of everything that's involved here. It also strikes me that we talk a lot about the importance of collaboration in this industry, right? And a lot of times we talk a lot about it, but we don't walk the talk around it. But in something like this, this is truly, I think, an example where collaboration is a must in terms of aligning of incentives and metrics, in terms of having ongoing and honest and transparent communication between all parties. This is a moving target too. I mean, I think you set something up like this, but the reality is this is a very dynamic environment. So it's something that's a living, breathing type of program. So you continuously have to analyze it and continue to all the parties to communicate as things change out in the field, whether it's changing requirements, or maybe there's a weather event, or whatever the case might be. That's where the people side of things come in terms of the communication and the analysis to continuously adjust to the changing operating realities that are out there, right?
Yeah, and that's a great point. And so that communication, that collaboration, that alignment is critical. If you don't have that, we're not going to have success in this. I think a lot about, one of the things that we talk a lot about is just kind of rebalancing that network periodically and kind of looking and saying, hey, does the freight flow, does the model, do the plans that we put together this year, are they going to hold and work next year, right? Regulatory things come in, ELDs come in, all of a sudden you get less stops on those trucks. And then there's that balance of saying, hey, are we okay with a little bit of less utilization to trade off for fewer stops, because the freight becomes more attractive to the marketplace, and you've got set up for a higher chance of success of delivery and those type of things. Again, inventory sizes are kind of all over the place. They're going to rise and fall, and as they've been shrinking, it's really all about, and then with all of the different changing compliance standards, understanding all of that stuff, and again, putting together a plan that works for a period of time is important, but it's also just as important to reassess that plan on a periodic basis and make tweaks and adjustments where you need.
Great. So can you share with us some customer examples or the types of benefits that are achieved through this type of program?
Yeah, I think we touched on it for shippers, right? First and foremost, it's mitigation of those fees and fines. So if they're in the right retail consolidation program, we can help mitigate those fees and fines, and then the right consol program can do that. I think having those higher scorecards and achieving a better standing with their customers is really important. And this can really lead to becoming a preferred vendor. If you think about it, a lot of vendors they're going to be in a category with other vendors, right? So it's really a competitive advantage to have high scorecards, be a preferred vendor, have your product on shelves when maybe the next guy doesn't, right? That's a big competitive advantage. And so I think those are some of the things that, shippers are looking for as a benefit. I think some of the ancillary stuff that we talked about and some of the other benefits are, this does tend to be a more precision-based, a lot of consistency, a lot of, consistent rates, those type of things. And so it might be a little bit painful to change into some of this stuff, but as you get dialed into having the right, your production schedules aligned with your delivery appointments and those type of things, once you go through the pain of that change, all of a sudden you're enjoying a much more, an easier to run supply chain, if you will, right? Things are running a lot smoother. So there's some ancillary benefits there too. But I also think the benefits extend well beyond just even the shipper, right? We just talked about what it means to the retailer to have the right omni-channel. And so we always think that a good consolidation program can help them achieve that omni-channel a lot faster and help them achieve their goals to drive sales. I talked a little bit about the carrier community too. It's no secret there that drivers want to be home more often. That's the grind. That's a tough job. That's a job with high turnover. What the carrier community's really told us over the last couple of years and told everybody is they want that consistency. They want freight that gets them home more often. They want freight that, they can align backhauls around and stuff like that. And so when we're able to build out these models, we're able to bring that to the carrier community, and they reward with, more consistent static rates, with better service and all those type of things. So I think those benefits sort of, it's sort of circular there, and it kind of can benefit all parties.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the hardest part is always that change management, right? To move away from the way we've always done things, right? To kind of a different approach that, if done right, to your point, is a win-win-win for all the parties, right? A win for the shippers, a win for the retailers, and a win for the logistics service providers that are part of this whole, this whole process. We're running a little bit short on time here, so I'm just going to go right to my last question.
Okay.
We certainly covered a lot of ground here, but as a way to wrap up, I mean, what questions should companies ask themselves to assess if implementing a retail consolidation program makes sense for them, and how do they get started?
Sure. Yeah. First and foremost, do you have LTL or multi-stop quantities that are delivering into retail channels today? Right. That's really the first question. The secondly, have you been experiencing fees, fines, non-compliance, scorecards that are probably less than you want them to be? Right. Are you spending additional time? This is a big one that we've seen too. Is you'll have a lot of shippers who are really bending over backwards to stay in compliance, but they're spending a lot of energy. They're hiring extra people. They're spending more money on technology. They're maybe suffering some underutilization on those loads because they're trying to build their own multi-stop truckloads. If you're experiencing, I think, any of that acrimony or any of that pain, then you might want to look at kind of pooling and getting into a retail consolidation program.
Yeah, I think those are some key questions there to really think about. And I think if you answered yes to any of those questions, especially if you answered yes to all of them, I think that's an immediate signal that you should take a look at this. Well, Linus, we covered a lot of ground here. Certainly I think you provided some great insights and some great advice in terms of retail consolidation programs and what it is, how it works, and then some food for thought for companies to think about this moving forward. So I want to thank you again for your time to be with us today.
Thank you, Adrian. And if you ever have any questions about any of this, you can go on to chrobinson.com. We now have a retail consolidation site page. There's a page. It's a lot of educational materials out there, probably more about how some of this stuff works, covers some of the topics that we had today, and is really there is a source of information for customers or carriers who might be interested in this.
Great. And, I want to thank those of you that joined us today. And, if you do have any questions for Linus and you're watching this episode on demand, either at the C.H. Robinson website, while you're checking out some of the other educational material there, or on Talking Logistics, you can post a question there. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. So again, thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.
Excellent. Thank you, Adrian.